This happened when I was about 12 years old. I've always loved Halloween. It's been my favorite holiday ever since I was little. I grew up in a small town in Michigan, where trick-or-treating was a huge deal. All the neighborhoods would go all out with decorations, and everyone knew which houses gave out the best candy. My parents would let me and my older brother, Mason, go out by ourselves, as long as we stayed together and were home by 9 p.m. sharp. This particular Halloween, I remember being super excited because I had this really cool zombie costume that my mom had helped me make. We'd spent weeks working on it, getting the makeup just right and tearing up old clothes to make them look like I'd crawled out of a grave. Mason was 16 at the time and thought he was too cool for costumes, so he just wore a hockey mask and his normal clothes, which I thought was lame, but whatever. We started our route around 6 p.m., right as it was getting dark, hitting all our usual spots. The first hour went great. My pillowcase was already getting heavy with candy when we reached Cedar Street, which was known for having the best decorations in town. There was this one house at the end of the street that had gone absolutely all out. They had fog machines, tombstones set up all over the yard, and these really impressive animatronics that would jump out at kids as they walked up the driveway. What caught my attention, though, was this person dressed as a scarecrow, sitting completely still in a chair on the porch. I remember thinking it was just a dummy at first because it didn't move at all, even when other kids walked right past it to get their candy. The house itself was all lit up with these orange and purple lights, and they were playing creepy sounds from speakers hidden in the bushes. Mason and I walked up to the house, and I remember feeling a little nervous about the scarecrow, even though I was trying to act brave. Mason rang the doorbell, and a middle-aged woman answered with a bowl of full-sized candy bars, which was like striking gold on Halloween. She smiled at us, told us she loved my zombie costume, and let us each take 2 candy bars. As we were turning to leave, I glanced back at the scarecrow and noticed it was gone. I stopped in my tracks and tugged on Mason's sleeve, pointing to the empty chair. Mason just shrugged and said, "It's probably just someone who works here taking a break or something." But something about it made me feel uneasy. We continued trick-or-treating down the street, hitting a few more houses, when I noticed someone walking behind us. I kept glancing back and saw the same scarecrow costume about half a block behind us. Every time I looked, it would stop moving, almost like it was playing red light, green light. I told Mason someone was following us, but he just rolled his eyes and said I was being paranoid. When we turned down Maple Avenue, which was a bit darker, with fewer streetlights, I noticed the scarecrow was definitely closer now, only about 4 houses behind us. I was getting seriously freaked out at this point and told Mason we needed to go home. He finally looked back and saw what I was talking about. His whole attitude changed immediately. He grabbed my arm and started walking faster, saying, "Don't look back, just keep moving." We picked up our pace and headed toward a group of other trick-or-treaters, thinking we'd be safer in a crowd. But when we reached the corner and looked back, the scarecrow was running toward us. Not walking anymore, but full-on sprinting. It didn't move like a normal person. There was something jerky and unnatural about the way its limbs moved. Mason yelled, "Run!" And we both took off as fast as we could, still clutching our candy bags. I could hear footsteps pounding on the pavement behind us, gaining on us. My brother pulled me between 2 houses, cutting through someone's backyard. We jumped a fence and ended up on the next street over, both of us breathing hard, looking around frantically. We didn't see the scarecrow anymore, so we kept moving, taking a different route home than we usually would. We were about 3 blocks from our house when we saw it again, standing under a streetlight, just staring in our direction. Its mask was this burlap sack with crude eye holes cut out, and stitching that made it look like it had this twisted smile. Mason pushed me behind him and yelled, "What do you want?" The scarecrow just stood there, motionless for a few seconds, before slowly raising its arm and pointing directly at me. That's when I noticed it was holding something that glinted in the streetlight, something that looked like a knife. Mason must have seen it too because he grabbed my hand, and we sprinted the rest of the way home, not stopping until we burst through our front door. My parents were confused and alarmed when we came crashing in like that, faces white with fear, candy spilling everywhere. Mason locked the door behind us and told our parents what happened. My dad immediately called the police and went to look out the window, but there was no sign of anyone in a scarecrow costume. The police came and took our statements, but they never found anyone. The officer told us there had been reports of someone in a scarecrow costume following other kids that night too, but whenever adults approached, they would disappear. The strangest part of all this is what happened the next day. When my mom was cleaning up around the house, she found something slipped under our welcome mat. It was a small Polaroid picture of me and Mason asleep in our beds, from what must have been the night before Halloween. The picture was partly burned around the edges. Someone had been in our house, watching us sleep, before all this happened. I still get chills thinking about it. And to this day, I can't look at scarecrow decorations without feeling sick to my stomach. It was my sophomore year of college, and I was living in the dorms with my roommate, Jordan. We'd been friends since freshman year and got along pretty well. Our campus was known for its Halloween traditions. The entire month of October was filled with events, haunted houses, parties, and a huge costume contest on Halloween night. It was a pretty big deal. The dorms would get super competitive with decorations, and the RAs would organize floor-wide themed events. Jordan and I had been looking forward to it for weeks. Our floor had decided on a classic movie monsters theme, and we'd volunteered to decorate the common room together. The day before Halloween, we were up late in our dorm room working on decorations. I was cutting out cardboard bats, while Jordan was untangling these cheap LED string lights we'd bought. We'd been at it for hours and were both getting pretty tired. Around 2 a.m., Jordan said he needed a break and was going to head down to the vending machines in the basement to grab some snacks for us. I told him to bring me back some chips and kept working on the decorations. When Jordan didn't come back after 15 minutes, I didn't think much of it. I figured he probably ran into someone he knew and got caught up talking. After 30 minutes, though, I started getting a little concerned. I texted him but got no response, which was weird because Jordan always had his phone on him. I waited another 10 minutes before deciding to go look for him. I headed down to the basement, which was always a little creepy, even during the day. The building was old, built in the 1920s, and had these narrow hallways with flickering fluorescent lights. The basement was worse. It had concrete walls painted this ugly institutional green color, and the ceiling was low with exposed pipes running along it. The vending machines were at the far end, across from the laundry room. I pushed open the heavy door to the basement and immediately felt something was off. It was completely silent. No humming from the vending machines, no washing machines running, nothing. I called out Jordan's name but got no answer. The lights were dimmer than usual, casting these weird shadows across the floor. I walked slowly toward the vending machines, looking around for any sign of Jordan. When I got there, I saw his student ID on the floor in front of the machine, like he'd dropped it. I picked it up and looked around again, calling his name louder this time. That's when I noticed the door to the maintenance room was slightly ajar, which was strange because it was always locked. I knew I probably shouldn't, but I walked over to it and pushed it open a little wider, peering inside. It was dark, but I could make out shapes of tools and equipment stacked against the walls. I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight, sweeping it around the room. That's when I saw something that made my blood run cold. On the far wall, someone had hung up what looked like Halloween decorations at first glance. But as I got closer, I realized they were photos. Dozens of them, of students sleeping in their dorm rooms. Most of them I didn't recognize, but right in the center was a photo of me, asleep in my bed from just a few nights ago. I backed away in shock. And that's when I bumped into something solid behind me. I spun around and found myself face to face with our maintenance man, Mr. Keegan, but he looked different. His eyes were wide and vacant, and he was wearing this bizarre Halloween mask pushed up on top of his head. It was one of those realistic latex ones that looked like flayed skin. He was holding something in his hand, which I realized with horror was Jordan's phone. "You weren't supposed to see this yet," he said in this eerily calm voice. None of you were supposed to know until Halloween night. I asked him where Jordan was, and he just smiled, this smile that didn't reach his eyes. He's part of the celebration now, he said. Just like you'll be. I don't remember consciously deciding to run, it was pure instinct. I shoved past him as hard as I could and sprinted for the stairs. I could hear him coming after me, his footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. Somehow, I made it back to my floor and started pounding on doors, yelling for help. My Arif finally opened her door, looking confused and annoyed, until she saw my face. I was hysterical, trying to explain what I'd seen and that Jordan was missing. She called campus security right away. They found Mr. Keegan in the basement, but Jordan wasn't there. The police were called, and they searched the entire campus. They found Jordan 3 days later, locked in a storage shed on the edge of campus. He was dehydrated and drugged but alive. Mr. Keegan had apparently been planning something for Halloween night. He had master keys to all the dorms and had been taking pictures of students while they slept for months. The police searched his apartment off campus and found journals detailing his plans to create what he called a Halloween harvest, targeting specific students. They also found costumes, masks, and all kinds of restraints and tools. The investigation revealed that Mr. Keegan had worked at 3 other colleges before ours, and at each one, a student had gone missing on Halloween night, but their bodies were never found. The scariest part is that he'd been working at our school for 7 years, and no one had ever suspected him. Jordan dropped out after that semester, and I can't say I blame him. I finished my degree, but I moved off campus, and I've never celebrated Halloween since. It's just not worth the memories it brings back. I'm originally from a small rural town in southern Illinois, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone and nobody locks their doors at night. When I was 9 years old, my family lived in a farmhouse that sat on about 5 acres of land, with cornfields surrounding us on all sides. Our nearest neighbor was about half a mile down the road. We were pretty isolated out there, which never bothered me until the Halloween when everything changed. That year, my older sister, Lily, who was 12 at the time, had convinced our parents to let us go trick-or-treating in town, which was about a 15-minute drive from our house. Normally, we just visit the handful of houses within walking distance, but this year, Lily wanted to go where all the action was. We spent the afternoon carving pumpkins and setting them on our porch before getting into our costumes. I was dressed as a pirate, and Lily was a witch, complete with a pointy hat and green face paint. Our mom drove us into town around 6 p.m. and said she'd pick us up at 8:30 from the community center, where they were having a Halloween party for kids. The town was packed with trick-or-treaters that night, which was exciting for us since we weren't used to seeing so many people. It was a perfect Halloween night too, slightly chilly, with a full moon and leaves crunching under our feet as we walked from house to house. Lily and I had a blast, going door to door collecting candy and showing off our costumes. By about 8 p.m., our bags were getting pretty heavy, and we decided to head to the community center early to wait for our mom. It was only a few blocks away, and we knew the way there well enough, since we'd visited many times before. As we were walking, I noticed this old beat-up van parked on the side of the road ahead of us. There was something off about it. I remember thinking it looked out of place in our small town, where everyone drove either trucks or sensible family cars. As we got closer, I could see there was someone sitting in the driver's seat, just watching kids walk by. I couldn't make out their face, but I got this feeling in my stomach like something wasn't right. I tugged on Lily's sleeve and told her I thought we should cross the street. She rolled her eyes at me but agreed. Just as we were crossing, I looked back and saw the van's headlights turn on. It pulled away from the curb and started driving slowly down the street, in the same direction we were headed. I told Lily the van was following us, but she said I was being paranoid. Still, she picked up our pace a little. We turned right at the next corner, hoping to lose the van, but it turned right too, now matching our speed perfectly. Lily started to look worried too. We were still a few blocks from the community center, and the street we were on now had fewer people on it. Most of the trick-or-treaters were concentrated in the neighborhoods we'd just left. Lily grabbed my hand and said we should cut through the park. It would be a shortcut to the community center, and the van couldn't follow us there. We ran across the street and into the park. It was dark, with just a few lamps illuminating the main path. Most of the park was in shadows. We stayed on the path, moving as quickly as we could without running. We were about halfway through when I heard footsteps behind us. Someone was following us, and they were getting closer. I squeezed Lily's hand, and we both started running, not caring anymore if we looked scared. We could hear the person behind us running too now, their footsteps pounding on the path. Just as we reached the park exit, a man stepped out from behind a tree, right in front of us, blocking our way. He was wearing a Halloween mask, not a store-bought one, but something that looked handmade, like he'd stitched together pieces of leather and fabric to make this grotesque face. He was tall and thin, wearing dark clothes and leather gloves. I'll never forget how he just stood there silently, staring at us through the eye holes of that mask. Lily pushed me behind her and shouted at the man to leave us alone. I was crying at this point, terrified of what might happen. The man took a step toward us and reached into his pocket. Lily screamed as loud as she could. It was like this piercing wail that seemed to echo through the entire park. It must have startled him because he hesitated for just a second. That's when we heard voices coming from the direction of the community center. People were walking toward the park, looking for the source of the scream. The man turned and ran, disappearing into the darkness of the park. We ran toward the voices, which turned out to be a group of parents who'd been at the community center. They called the police and stayed with us until our mom arrived. The police searched the park but didn't find the man. They did, however, find the van parked a block away from the park entrance. When they ran the plates, they discovered it had been reported stolen 3 days earlier from a town about 50 miles away. The really disturbing part came a week later, when the police called my parents. They'd found a backpack hidden in the woods at the edge of the park. Inside were rope, duct tape, a hunting knife, and a camera with pictures of children from our town, including several of Lily and me from earlier that night. They never caught the man, despite increasing patrols around Halloween for years afterward. My parents never let us go trick-or-treating again after that, and honestly, I didn't mind. I still get anxious when Halloween comes around. I can't help thinking about what might have happened if Lily hadn't screamed, or if those people hadn't been nearby. I know we were incredibly lucky that night, and I often wonder if the man in the mask found other children who weren't as fortunate.